everybody to the Latinx Education Collaborative, Ask an Educator. We are super excited to have an amazing person with us today. Hello, Julia. How are you?
Good. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. It's so great to see you. We have Julia Avila who's an educator, and let's get started. Let's get to know you. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and like where you're from, a little bit of your background?
Yes. Okay. So, hi everyone. My name is Julia Avila. I'm from Kansas City, Missouri. I grew up pretty much on like the West Side area and in South Kansas City, but for the most part of my life, it's now South Kansas City. And I went to UMKC, graduated twice with my bachelor's and master's, and now I am teaching.
I love that. Okay, tell us a little bit about your leadership story. It's something to do with your upbringing, your journey as a student, as a professional, anything that you want to share with the community.
Yes. Okay. So initially, I actually didn't even have teaching anywhere on my radar. When I had went to college, I was going for biochemistry and molecular biology. I was double majoring. I wanted to be a scientist, do something with stems or DNA. Um, but that major wasn't really for me. I was just told, "Oh, you're good at chemistry," or "Oh, you're good at math. You're good at English. You're good at." I was pretty much good at everything, and I don't mean to toot my own horn, but it was really hard to kind of, narrow down in my senior year of high school what I wanted to do. So I just went with, the teacher who was the coolest, and it was chemistry, Mrs. Lucanato over at Bishop Miege. And, I stuck with it for 2 years, and I came across a professor at UMKC. I think he was the dean of science at that time. I'm not too sure. And he wasn't as receptive to like allowing a little bit of extra time to study because I had gotten into like a car accident and I was asleep in and out of sleep for like 2 days. And I he emailed me on the third day and he was like, "Hey, you're set to return to school tomorrow. Go ahead and take the test." And I was like, "Oh, like I've been asleep. I haven't studied." And he goes, um, "Take the test anyways." And that was the first time I believe I got like a 53 out of 100 on anything. And I think it was at that moment where I thought, this is not for me. At least I know college is for me. I'm going to go through college, but the science maybe isn't for me. So I unfortunately fell out of love with the major, and I didn't know what to do at the time. And about a couple months later, it's now December, and my poetry professor actually reached out to me and she was like, "Hey, let's hop on a Zoom call." Because this was like during, COVID and everything. And I hopped on it with her, and her name is Dr. Barr. And she said that she was so surprised that I was not an English major.
Wow.
And from then I was like, "Oh, like I didn't know, like, what is there to do in English?" Like
Yeah.
in my head, from what I was told and how I was raised, it was to always follow the money, right?
Mhm.
And I thought about it and I was like, there is no money in English. I mean, I like English, don't get me wrong. I like poetry, I like reading, I like writing, I like
Yeah.
writing essays, peer editing. I like all of that. But what money is there? And she obviously told me the realities of it, and she told me, if you do want money, that there are things you can go through. And I wasn't too sure at the time, but I think it was a conversation with my mom and I, and then eventually I was like, "You know what? I'm just gonna teach English." And I finished out my next 2 years with English for my major for bachelor's, and then that last semester I, applied to graduate school, got into it, and that's kind of where it started teaching. I will admit, it wasn't until the first time I stepped into a classroom for practicum where I was like, "You know what, teaching is for me." Before then, it was just in theory. I'll be good at it. Oh, I was, yeah. And that's kind of how I ended up. I will say though that there were teachers like the professor that I mentioned, the science one, who not only influenced, but it made me upset with the fact that, no leniency was given. And I understand that not every teacher or every professor has to grant that to you. But I was always, the teachers that I did have before, they were fantastic, amazing. And I just thought, if teachers can make or break your experience, I need to be in that position so I can make everybody's experience. Um, and that's what I hope that I'm doing. I'm very careful with my words, because I will say something I didn't mention is, in high school there was the senior teacher, who I wanted to jump up from normal English to AP from sophomore to junior year, and they all told me you have to go to the head of the English department and ask her. And I said, okay, no problem. So I go and I'm like, hey, can I move up? And I was so nervous. I don't remember anything she told me except for, yes, you can move up, but you're not going to get higher than a C in my class. I didn't pay attention to that second part. I was only focused on, yes, this old woman with short hair and glasses just told me, yes, like I'm going to AP. But after dealing with that science professor, I started to, and a lot of the classes asked us to reflect on our past experiences with teachers and what we want to be like, what we don't want to be like. And I now realize that the head of the English department should not have said that to me. Um, that could have actually broke me my senior year. And I tried my best. One of the pieces that I wrote for her ended up reading at my grandfather's funeral because it was just that good. He had remembered for all those years about the essay I wrote about him. And I refused to believe that the grade that I left her class with was the grade I deserved.
Mhm.
But she unfortunately, I don't know if she wanted to be right or if she knew it, but I did not get higher than a C in her class. But
Mhm.
that comes to say, here I am teaching English,
Yes.
ninth and 10th graders, and that phrase is just not in my vocabulary. I will never tell a kid at least get a C, or you're not going to get higher than a C. It's you are BA level. We should be up there. So yeah, that's kind of my journey to where I am today.
Julia, I just have to tell you, you are exactly what we need in our education and just in the world, because having my own kids go through the same things right now and in college, it's unfortunate that we do have educators out there that don't see beyond something, right? And don't give hope, but instead give like structure.
Mhm.
Sometimes that structure has to be broken, and applaud you so much, because sometimes those structures being broken are the hardest thing to do, and you do have to be loud, you do have to be, okay with that, and look what it's done, look where you're at, in the right place that you needed to be. So I applaud you. And I am such an English, lover. I'm a creative writer. And you are exactly right. I think, especially in our culture, it's like, where do we find money in that? But look
Mhm.
where you're at. And you're teaching these kids now that they can do this. So yeah, I just want to applaud you for that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, so what have been some hurdles, which I think you've talked a little bit about as well, but if there's anything else you want to share in your career, maybe now, that have made following your dream of teaching, a little bit more difficult. So maybe even now for the present, now that you're a teacher.
Yes. I will say there's about three things. The first two, obviously coworkers, but I'll focus on the third one before I get to the first two. Time management.
Mhm.
Wow. I always knew teachers went above and beyond. And, for those who have families, like as someone with just a dog who turned one, I can't, it's really tough because you're trying to balance your family life, your social life, you're trying to balance grading, teacher meetings, PLTs, PLCs, parent teacher conferences, and all of that. But, um, I will say also I am a soccer coach, so it's it's quite tough having to go after, deal with practices and having to manage emotions because, it is tryout week. A lot of girls have heightened emotions because they want to make varsity, and they're just learning new positions because a lot of our seniors left and we have all these positions open. So that's tough. But I'm gonna pivot to the coworkers. Coworkers, obviously you want to have, a great working environment,
Mhm.
but sometimes that's not always the case.
Mhm.
Every job I ever had, I loved the people I worked with. I always, if I didn't like the boss's boss, I liked the manager or the supervisor. Now, I will say that I was a new teacher last year, and my co-teacher or partner teacher, however you want to phrase it, they did make it a little difficult for me to acclimate. to the environment. And while I thought they were being helpful, I think in the end they really weren't. So
Mhm.
I kind of had to manage, okay, how do I coexist with this person who has experience, who went through the same master's program, or if not like the scholarship program we went through at UMKC, and also someone who had all the materials, or at least materials for, like the outlines. How do I go about being on, the good side of this person while also them wanting to seem to be against me the entire time? So I eventually had to learn the hard way that unfortunately sometimes you are out there on your own. Unfortunately, you don't have people to go to. And that made me feel really lonely last year because I didn't feel like I had anyone. I mean, I had my friend next door, or now friend, a coworker who was same first year teacher, same age. I had her, but we teach different levels, so it wasn't as the same as saying, "Hey, what are you teaching this ninth grade class?" Or, "Hey, when do you think you're going to be done?" Or, "Hey, I have to ask you, how do I teach like a graphic novel?" Because I'd never taught one prior to this, so it was definitely a challenge, but I learned to work around and adapt. And I think that made me a better teacher than what I would have been should I've had someone, give me everything, which both are great. But I think this definitely shaped who I am today.
Well, I love that you're bringing out truths. These are things that happen. These are things that don't always get talked about, and they should. Because for my next question, I want to ask you, what advice would you give educators, listening right now who might be struggling with a lot of the points that you just said?
Oh, okay. Yes, 100%. For those who are either thinking about it or currently, in the field, you always hear administrators or people who come in from third parties for professional development days where they say, find your marigold, right? Find the flower that, brightens your day, or someone you can go to. And like, obviously, they're not a therapist, but just someone who you can just go to the room and think, "Ugh, I can be myself." Those people truly do get you through some of the hardest days. They truly do help you. I mean, it's even better if that's an administrator. But find your marigolds, and also it's okay to take time to yourself. That
Mhm.
is such a hard thing that I'm learning this year is, grade at school, go home, answer an email or two, but after that, just turn it off and be present. Because a lot of times when we go home, we're just tired and exhausted that we, get on our phones and we think that's resting, but that's really not. So definitely take time to decompress and consider some more, I would say, self-care, self-love type of activities. I think that would really help.
I love that. I love that so much. And I love the fact that you say you're not just sitting down and scrolling because, yeah, you're right. Sometimes we do think, oh, thinking
Yes.
about things, but we still are thinking about things.
Mhm.
So, Julia, what keeps you going? What keeps you waking up in the morning and being like, I'm an educator and I'm getting up this morning and I'm gonna kill it this morning. Yeah.
Honestly, so I've had some tough days this year, and I've always thought, okay, like what if I take today off? Like I could really just stay here with my dog and sleep in. Um, And then when I start getting ready, the sub requests or preparing my sub note, I think of all those students who see me in the morning. I think of all those students who, give me a fist bump and as they're passing. I think of all those students who are like good morning or hello. And I think of the students who really learn when I'm in class. There have been a couple moments this year where I've just walked around the room and they're all writing, they're all, talking to their partner, or they're understanding what is needed. And I'm though those students, those moments are the only reasons why I come in. And it's actually all my students. If I were to not be here, I would probably be at home thinking, okay, it's like 8:05, class is starting now. This their passing period, this is lunch. And um they keep me going. They are the reasons I'm here. Yes, I'm getting some grades, but they're also a reason for a lot of smiles and laughs. And I realize the more I'm here, the more I'm present, the more they're gonna learn, the more they're gonna love the school. So they are they're my why. They're my
I
why.
I love that. You gave me goosebumps because just like I think about my own educators that have influenced me as well. And you are the English teacher that, Zoomed you that day and like gave
Hmm.
me that motivation. So you're giving it back and it's so amazing. So one last question. If you had one thing that you wanted all of your students to walk away from your class, your school, your district, knowing or learning, what would that be?
Ooh. First thing, thesis statements. Just kidding. But I actually want them knowing that anything, any amount of work that they get, any subject that they're coming across, any challenge they have, they can overcome. Right? Because what you learn in here, yeah, they're just words. Yeah, it's like formats or formulas. But everything you learn here, you can apply outside. So while you may not be writing an argumentative essay, you know how to format an argument. You know how to, state the other side so someone can understand you. So I really think it's not the grit, but it's being able to navigate through all the work, all the course load, and still have a smile at the end of the day.
I love that. Still have a smile at the end of the day. And to know that they have an ally, whether they're here with you right now or 10 years from now, Julia, I know that you'll be available to those students. I just want to thank you so much for being here with us. I loved our conversation. I love what you're doing. Thank you for everything that you do. And
Mhm.
we're always here for you, always supporting you.
Thank
So
you.
we are so excited to have you with us. And I give everyone a great evening. Thank you.